Welcome to Root and Rewire, a grounded, mystical space for awakening, remembering, and becoming. I'm Kayla, and here we explore the shifts, the stories, and the synchronicities that reshape us from the inside out, along with the mystical, the unseen, and the magic that's woven into everyday life. Take a deep breath, soften into yourself, and let's begin. Hello, my loves. Welcome to another episode of Root and Rewire podcast. As always, I'm so honored that you are here with me today. I live in the Carolinas, so we are all preparing for what they say to be a big winter storm that is a brewing. And I really took this as an opportunity to not dive into fear because I am now an emergency prepper. So I know that I have just about anything that I need, but to lean more into what it's like to be fully disconnected, right? Because with this winter storm, they're saying there's a chance of losing power, stock up on water, stock up on flashlights, freeze-dried foods, and all this stuff. And this is such an excellent time to reconnect with ourselves and the natural rhythm of the earth and of life, where we're so used to having so many different distractions and so many things that take us away from ourselves and our bodies. And I'm just extremely grateful that this is happening now at a time where I feel for me it is important for me to ground again and to come back home to myself and prove to myself that no matter what, I am prepared. No matter what, I am taken care of. No matter what, I am good. So this is like a cycle for me that seems like it is closing for this point. I'm sure to open up once again at another time, but this feels like the end of a cycle for me, going through so much fear of not being prepared enough and coming to this end where I feel like I've prepared enough, but now let's see. Now let's put it to the test and take a deep breath and come back home to myself. I'm looking at this winter storm as a positive, and I will let you know next week how it goes. Where I've ended up. But anyways, calling back everyone to this podcast episode. And before we dive in, I want to invite you all to just reconnect with your bodies in this moment and reconnect to our breath. So let's take a real big, deep breath in and out through the mouth. This episode today is not one that I want you to just listen and to just take in with your mind, but this is one that I really want you to feel in your body and allow your body to receive this information. The information that we're discussing in this episode is not new. I did not make it up. This is something we all already know, but don't take time to remind ourselves of when we are in the process of our healing journey. And like we talked about in a previous episode, it's really important to remind ourselves of the humanity piece. We are multidimensional beings. We have crazy, beautiful powers. We have intuition and a soul that connects us to the divine, but we are also here in a body. In a human realm, we are human. And today we're talking about something that I know almost everyone on a healing journey has felt at some point. And it is that moment where you look at your life and you think, why am I back here again? Why do I keep repeating the same pattern over and over? I thought I healed this. I thought I learned this, but why is this still showing up? And I want to start by naming this super clearly, because that feeling is frustration. It's frustrating. It's confusion, it's grief, and honestly, it can feel a little humiliating. You've prayed, you've journaled, you've processed, you've had crazy breakthroughs and beautiful realizations. You've told yourself that the chapter is now closed, and then suddenly we are crying about the same thing again. We are triggered by the same dynamic again. We're missing the same person. We're doubting ourselves in the same ways. And it's really easy to think that you're failing. What if forgetting doesn't mean failure? What if forgetting is actually integration? What if this isn't proof that you're behind and you still have so much work to do, but proof that your spirit is making something real inside of you? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So this whole idea of, I thought that I've learned this already, and why am I back here again? Let's normalize this right now. If you are in a season where you feel as if you're repeating the same patterns, or you're back in old emotions, your confidence level is tanking, your nervous system feels scrambled and out of tune, your intuition feels quieter than before, and you don't feel like yourself, I want you to know that this does not mean that you have lost your progress. That's impossible. It is impossible to lose the progress of things that you have already worked up to. That does not mean that you've fallen off of your path. It doesn't mean that you've regressed and you're going back. It means that you're human. It means that you're in a moment where your growth is asking you something way deeper than the first time. And it's not asking you, do you know this lesson? It is asking you, can you live this lesson? We have been conditioned spiritually, culturally, emotionally, to believe that healing looks like a straight line. Like, you've learned a lesson, you heal, you level up, you move on, and that's it. Time for the next lesson. But that is not how transformation works. And I've described it before as feeling as if there's so much to learn at once, because you open up a door and then another door is opening, and then another door is opening, and then another door is opening. It's layers. And this linear way of thinking about healing is capitalism. That is productivity culture. That is the achievement mindset sneaking into spirituality. And we cannot blame this. This is something that's been ingrained in us to, you get your homework, you finish your homework, now you have a test, you pass the test, moving on to the next lesson, time for economics 101. And it shows up as these subtle spiritual expectations that we place on ourselves. That I should be over this by now. I shouldn't still be triggered. I shouldn't still care. I shouldn't be this emotional. If I'm healed, I should feel peaceful all the time. But the truth is that Healing does not move in a straight line. Healing moves in spirals. Growth is not straight. Growth is a spiral. And spirals are sacred because spirals mean that you are revisiting, yes, you are, but from a higher vantage point with more awareness, with more maturity, with more capacity, with more nervous system resilience. So if you're back in the same theme again, it does not mean that you are stuck. It just means that you're growing even deeper roots. So why do we relearn the same lessons? Why do the same themes keep on showing up? Here are the real reasons that I believe to be true. And I want you to allow these to settle in your body and see if this resonates for you. Deeper layers reveal themselves. Sometimes you did heal something, but you only healed the first layer. And then life says, okay, now are you ready for the deeper layer? Because healing is not one conversation. It is not one breakthrough. It is not one solo crying session. Healing, in the way that we should look at it, is a relationship. And relationships deepen in layers. The nervous system also integrates things slowly. Your mind can learn something quickly, but your body takes time. It metabolizes. It settles. Your body is not convinced, like your mind, by affirmations. Your body is convinced by safety, repetition, consistency, gentleness. And that takes longer than we wanted it to. And this is where that connection of the heart-mind comes in, and why it's so important to not only think things, but to feel it as well, to see and understand from a different perspective. Is this integrated both in the mind and in the heart? Or is this only in the heart or only in the mind? New life contexts also activate old themes. You can have healed abandonment until you fall in love again. You can have healed your sense of self-worth until you step into visibility in a different way. You can have healed your voice until you have to use it with someone who used to silence you. New seasons awaken old themes, not because you have failed, but because your growth needs to be retested in real life. You do not repeat, you refine. This is such a powerful way to reframe this. If a lesson is coming back, it might not mean that you didn't learn it. It might just mean that you're ready to understand it differently now. Because you're not the same person you were the last time you faced it. You now have more awareness, tools, intuition, language, strength, the ability to hold yourself. So the return is not a punishment. It is a proof of readiness. And when we get to these moments in our healing, it's important to not think of ourselves as victims, because what we are faced with is something we are ready to receive. And you feeling as if you are stuck or you're not transitioning, or you're not moving, is also integration of itself, because now your body is taking in information or is taking in the lesson that your mind has already learned. And now you can see for yourself how much you have actually already overcame. And let's make this very, very clear because people confuse this part all the time. And honestly, up until recently, I have as well. A cycle is when the theme repeats and you end up in the same exact outcome. You have the same pain, you have the same reaction, the same abandonment of self, the same outcome. But thinking about it as a spiral is when you return to the same theme, yes, but with more and higher level of consciousness. You still feel it because you're human, but now maybe you notice it sooner. Now maybe you pause sooner or recover faster or choose differently than you would have in the past. So you are not back at the very beginning. You are not back at square one. It just feels this way because healing isn't flashy. Healing is subtle. It looks like taking a breath before reacting, like leaving a conversation that you once would have stayed in. It looks like saying no without explaining yourself. It looks like not betraying yourself to keep the peace. It looks like letting yourself cry without shame, or speaking gently to yourself during a very tough day. This is integration. Now, I want to bring in the sacred concept of forgetting, because forgetting is misunderstood. Let's think about this in terms of metaphors. Let's paint a picture. Learning to walk. When you learned to walk, you didn't intellectualize it. You fell, you wobbled, you tried again, and eventually you stopped thinking about it. Walking just became you. Or when you're learning how to swim, at first you need to understand the small and subtle mechanics of every single movement, until one day you just start moving, you just start kicking, and things just start making sense. You didn't even know when it happened. You didn't know the moment that you suddenly learned how to swim. You just started swimming. When you are healing, you are learning safety, not just in your mind, but in your nervous system. And safety is something that becomes embodied so slowly that often you don't notice the exact moment that it changes. So yes, sometimes you quote unquote forget, but what if forgetting isn't loss? What if it's embodiment? Because here's the truth. You don't think about what you've integrated. You just become it. Now, I need to speak to the parts of you that feel guilty for slowing down. And this is very personal for me because this was a whole process of learning to slow myself down. In the process of learning to pause and to slow my body down, I realized that this sacred pause began to just happen for me. And this concept of feeling guilty comes up for everyone. The pause, the plateau, the numbness, the boredom, the days where you feel like I'm not having downloads. I'm not journaling. I'm not feeling expired. I'm not feeling like I'm evolving. That might not be regression. That might be settling. And it's really important to start to reframe these days that you don't feel as activated as you did before. Because especially if we're women, we are cyclical as well. We go through different phases before our bleed. The phase where we are slowing down, where we are resting, and allowing our body to do what it needs to do before we shed and release. And this is the same that we should think about the days that we don't feel as activated or as on top of it, quote unquote, as other days. Because your body needs the pause. Your body needs the breath. Your body needs the rest. And the more that we can reframe this and build that relationship with understanding, the more we can just become it. The more it just starts happening to where we think, this rest feels really good for me today. And then 2 weeks later, when you're back to doing the journaling and the work, you feel a new sense of empowerment. You feel that you have transformed, that you have upgraded, because the lessons were settling in the times that you were allowing yourself to rest. In nature, things don't bloom constantly all the time. There are seasons where the earth looks quiet. But what's going on underground? Roots are growing. So if you are in a season where everything feels slower, that is not failure. That is your nervous system exhaling. That is integration. That is stabilization. Stabilization is just as sacred as expansion. Let's reclaim something right now. Your spirituality is not meant to make you perfect. It is meant to make you honest. And I really want to normalize doubt and messy emotions and grief that returns and triggers and anger and jealousy and insecurities and days where we feel disconnected, because these things do not mean that you are not spiritual. They mean that you are alive. Spirituality isn't meant to be a performance. And maybe this is the way we're used to seeing it on social media. Spirituality is not always high vibe. It is not constant peace, love, and light. Spirituality is the practice of staying present with yourself. It is the willingness to tell yourself the truth no matter what. This hurts. I'm afraid. I don't know. I feel tender today. That honesty, that vulnerability that you are showing yourself, that is sacred. That is beautiful and sexy and hot. This might be the most important point. This is where the lesson began integrating for me the more I thought about how I was not as spiritual as I was a few weeks ago. This is what settled within me. Maybe the lesson isn't even the lesson. Maybe the lesson is actually how you treat yourself while the lesson is happening. Because you can be relearning self-worth, but the true growth is, do you shame yourself when you struggle? Or do you hold yourself with compassion? Do you abandon yourself when it gets uncomfortable? Or do you stay? Do you make it mean that you are broken? Or do you let it mean that you are human? Do you make it mean that you are failing? or do you make it mean that you are growing? That is what integration looks like. Not never struggling ever again, but never abandoning yourself again. Let me give you something tangible. If you want proof that you are growing, look for the sign that you recover faster than you used to, that you notice sooner, that you choose differently even 5% of the time, that you don't spiral as long, you regulate quicker, you communicate more clearly, you stop chasing people who do not choose you, you stop abandoning your boundaries, you stop making yourself wrong for being emotional, you offer yourself gentleness sooner, you choose yourself over people pleasing. That is growth. That is remembering. That is the sacred spiral. A lot of times, the lessons you feel like you learned will come back to you again. But you are seeing it from a different perspective than you have before. You are learning the lesson in a new way. You are sitting with yourself in the feeling even longer. You are allowing it to settle in your body. You are choosing differently. You are choosing yourself. If you're back here again, it does not mean that you have failed. It means that you're ready to understand it differently. It means you're ready to embody what you once only understood intellectually. It means that your spirit is integrating something so deeply, it's becoming permanent. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not broken. You are not doing enough. You are not failing. You are becoming. You are becoming. And that is sacred. Okay, my loves. Thank you so much for being here with me today. If this episode resonated with you or touched you in any way, please feel free to share it with somebody who needs to hear it. And if you want, you can message me and tell me what part landed. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, stay rooted, stay soft, and keep remembering who you actually are. I'll see you in the next episode. Mwah. Thank you so much for your support and tuning in today. If this episode supported you and you would like to share, or if you're just looking for someone to connect with, you can find me on Instagram at Soil and Soul Sister. I hope to hear from you. I would love to hear from you. And until next time.